All right, good evening. We are going to go ahead and get started with our work session for December the 14th, 2023. Going to call the meeting to order at 5:07 p.m. Dr. Hooker, if you would conduct roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley, Ms. Claudia Butts, Ms. Linda Davis.
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager.
Here.
Mr. Tim Denton, Dr. Mumby Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant,
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hull, and Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, thank you. So we do have a quorum. We are going to move forward to item 3. This is the board president's report. I don't have many things, just wanted to remind the board that nominations and elections are coming up in January for board officers for the role of president and vice president. And so if you would keep that in mind. And I think that is it. Wanted to be sure also you still have on your radar our retreat that is scheduled for March. And if you recall, we determined that date a couple of months back. And so want to be sure that that's on your radar. And either myself or Dr. Hooker or Ms. Palmer will send out a reminder date, but we have selected that March date. Okay, that is it. Dr. Anderson, can you think of anything? All right. We will move forward to number 4. These are our informational items and board community reports. The very first one is the Early Head Start Policy Council meeting minutes. Is there any follow-up discussion regarding that report?
Just a question of ability to access some of the training. A part of that report lists a number of professional development and looks like community-oriented training sessions. I don't know that I've noticed it in
Can you speak a little bit closer to your mic, Ms. Davis?
I'm sorry. So in looking at the report, there are a number of scheduled trainings, I suppose, and I can't tell if they're all virtual or if they're exclusive to the employees. Some of them seem to be of interest to community members as well. Is that a possibility that we do have community participation in some of the trainings?
I do not have Ms. Kennedy here, but I do have an employee from our Office of Early Learning that may be able to answer some of your questions. Oh, it's not on. Lisa.
Okay, test.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I apologize for my voice. I have a cold. Any of those hyperlinks are accessible to the public?
Right.
That are listed on the email blasts from the Office of Head Start. Okay. And they're all located, normally they're all located on the Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center. Right. Which is the main website for the Office of Head Start. So yes, you should be able to click on all of those.
I did. I just didn't know if I was legal.
It's legal.
Appreciate
totally
that.
legal, yes.
Okay. Awesome. Can I ask one more question? This might not be, I don't think I did see that we don't have a waiting list anymore for, is it Early Head Start or 0 to 9 or which age group is that?
So on the waiting list report, we list it by center-based, home-based for Early Head Start, and center-based for Head Start, which is the 3-year-olds. Okay. And at the moment, we have a very small waiting list for the home-based services. Okay. If you recall, back in November, the board approved a change in scope to allow us to move seats to our pregnancy services to meet that demand, right. And to be responsive in that way. It's very difficult, especially in the time of COVID, for families to feel comfortable allowing folks into their home.
Thank you
It's
so
always been a
much.
challenge.
Okay.
Great.
All right, thank you. We'll move forward to our Athens Community Career Academy report. Any follow-up questions or discussion?
Dr. Hooker, back in September, I asked a question of the Career Academy about full-time faculty from Athens Technical College teaching in what I consider the Big Four that are transferable to our universities. And I still have not gotten a response from them yet. Could we follow up on that, please?
Sure, we'll follow up on that and hopefully get it out to you in the Friday's update.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, more of a request than a question. I would really like for us to, at some time, sit down with our Career Academy board, as I see some extraordinary things happening in that space, and I just want to better understand how the board relates to that and where we sit in terms of understanding how that works.
Ms. Davis, are you talking about an additional meeting? I know we sit down with their board at least once a year.
Yeah, that's a presentation. I'm looking for a discussion.
Okay. Are there specific, or I guess we could follow up with that, because when I've attended, I think that's been an opportunity to ask questions and have discussion, but would you like to, are there specific questions?
I noticed that some projects that were funded, and they mentioned not using the funding that they have set aside in their account at the Athens Area Foundation. They were able to get some things done outside of that. And so I just kind of want to understand how the money flow works, and then what responsibility does the school board have in terms of oversight of those funds if they are directed to our children.
Okay, and so to clarify, you are requesting a separate meeting with them, or is this something you would like to request at our normal meeting that we have with them, time for a discussion and follow up on some of these areas?
I'll be happy if we can have the discussion before. It has always been a presentation, and then we rush into our meeting. So I'm looking for some time, some quality time with that board.
Okay, so one thing Dr. Hooker mentioned is that we could possibly start at an earlier time when we meet with them and request that we have more discussion during that time, or a time for discussion.
I'm not particular about how we make it happen. I'd
Okay.
just like to see it happen.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thanks. All right, any additional discussion points? A follow-up around the Community Career Academy? Okay, we'll move forward to the Community Oversight Committee report.
Thank you, Dr. Gant. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Yeager for the past couple of months stepping in for me in that role. I do appreciate you so much. Thank you. The school system, the East Blos brought in $3.2 million in October. One of the things that was kind of discussed in there is that the revenue is a lot more than we had expected, which is it's a good problem to have. There are some things that we may have to consider later on down the line. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying that it's a good problem that we're having, but we may have to make some decisions down the road. As far as the projects and things that are going on, they are all on schedule, on time. The Clark Middle School teachers actually were able to go to the school and walk around, and some of them were asking, like, well, where would my room be, and all this other stuff. I hear it was a pretty emotional / spiritual event for some people there. They were just so blown away at the thought that has been placed into the building. And they are really excited about being able to move in there. You know, it's still, there's still a long way left to go, but it is truly remarkable to watch that building rise. I was housebound for 2 months, and then I went down back street the other day and I saw it. I was like, good Lord, look how much they've done in 2 months. So, but yeah, as far as projects and things are going, that's great. H.T. Edwards we're exploring the biomanufacturing lab, where our students will be able to get in on the ground floor. It's what's going to be a very necessary service that we're going to be having to provide, because that industry is going to do nothing but grow. And and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Additional questions, Dr. Anderson?
I saw in the report that you all talked about School C and the projections for enrollment kind of trending up a little bit, but it's more towards the middle school and not elementary age populations. Did you all have a robust conversation, or was that just sort of like a notation in the notes?
It was more of a notation, you know, that it's there so that way we can have that conversation when we need to have it. But right now the numbers just don't add up for us to sit there and, you know, spend a great deal of time about it.
Thank you. Additional questions?
I don't have any
Ms. Davis?
questions, but I am very happy to see some things closed out and some things coming off of that report. I think that helps to keep us focused on what we're dealing with the SPLOST. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Dr. Yeager?
I was just going to add, the money coming in faster is good, but we have a cap. So we won't collect more than we said we're going to collect, even though the money's coming in faster. So it just means we'll have the money ahead of the longer schedule, but we don't collect more money in the long run. We just collect the cap. Just to be clear that we're not getting lots more tax dollars than we planned for. It's just it's coming sooner.
All right, thank you. We will move forward to our advisory board reports.
Our SPLOST update, if Mr. John Gilbert will come forth and give you an update. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. The advisory board reports, any follow-up discussion with the Superintendent Student Advisory Council and the Teacher Advisory Board? I'm assuming the Parent Advisory Board, I know we hadn't had a chance to chit-chat about that, but they have not met.
No, they have not met. I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Omar Reed and the new president, Ms. Brooks, and we're planning a meeting. Ms. Palmer, am I correct in saying January? Yes, I have a meeting in January scheduled. I'll get that date out to you as well in the Friday update.
Okay, because I think that was one of the committees that we at one point said we would have rotating people attending. And so if we have those dates in advance, I don't know if you can share that with the leadership, but if we know in advance, then it's a little bit easier for us to be able to decide who will attend. And a regular schedule, I do believe, helps the community also engage a little bit more. So, yep. Okay, thank you. Dr. Yeager.
Just a quick comment. Will the Sustainability Advisory Board fall into this category in the future? Reports from the Sustainability will come into this category?
I would think so. Now, that could be, that may change depending on how the agenda is set or if there are any changes to that.
Okay.
Or if the board would request to see it anywhere else, but I would think that they would fall here. Ms. Palmer, would you?
Just add a line, yeah, okay. If I may, then, let me just say that the committee had a hard time finding a time in December that we could all meet, and so with Dr. Hooker's assistance, we've set the date for the first committee meeting to be January 9th or 10th at 4:30. We're still trying to decide if the Tuesday or the Wednesday will work best, but it has been set, and so we'll have that first meeting next month.
Thank you for that update. Any additional questions or discussion points about the advisory boards? Okay. We are going to move forward to our facilities update, and Dr. Hooker, I'll turn the floor back over to you for the SPLOS monthly report and then the facilities update.
All right, thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Gilbert to come forth.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you commented on, we have taken several projects off of completed them, so they're off the list. I do believe I owe the board a project completion item for you guys to vote on. I'll get a certificate from the architect, and then we officially close those projects out, so that'll be coming up in a future board meeting. I'll have those for you. Right now, our two active projects are Clark Middle and Cedar Shoals. As stated, the teachers did do a tour of Clark Middle, and they were quite excited. We are on schedule. We've got some major milestones coming up with utilities going to the building, Georgia Power, Atlanta Gas Light, and the main electrical switchgear coming in as well. And in a minute, if Ms. Palmer can show us some photos, we'll do that. In fact, we can do it right now. So just a little brief tour. This is kind of the main entrance looking in. It's a 1.5-story canopy coming to the front of the school. If you just kind of pan through. This is a little bit further back, kind of the view from the existing school. It's kind of neat because the students and staff have the perspective of when they walk to lunch, they can see the progress every day of the building coming out of the ground. So they commented about how interesting it is, and they kind of watch it going on. I quizzed the media center lady to see if, hey, has the plumber been on site today? And they're building your space, you better be watching. So she's keeping her eyes open for me. This is over back in the kitchen area, loading dock space with the exterior brickwork going on. This is one of the requirements for Georgia Power and Atlanta Gas Light, that the brick and the exterior walls have to be done in order for them to bring the utilities up to the school. Just another view of that area. That the open area with the black on it, the damp proofing, that's part of the cafeteria. Again, kind of moving around the building with the 3-story structure, you can see that the masonry brickwork is almost complete on the 3-story, which is critical for getting the building dried in to where you can start finishes. And this is just a section where they're applying the brick on the connector building. This is looking from back of the gymnasium and the library side to the finished part of the 3-story building. They're going to start doing the exterior stormwater work now that all the brickwork's done, and trying to finish up in the back. This is another view from the 3-story. And that's a view kind of from Dudley Street. Same view. So again, we're progressing nicely. The weather's cooperated with us, and so we're, knock on wood, we're on schedule. All right, on as far as Cedar Shoals go, tonight I think I have an item coming to you for early purchasing of the bleachers for the gymnasium. So there's going to be several items I'm going to be bringing to you over the next couple of months. Next January will be the demolition and mechanical package so that we can order equipment for the summer work. And then February, I will bring you the Phase 1 GMP for the remaining work on Phase 1. We will be moving the 9th grade academy out to the modular units over Christmas. And January 8th, the 9th graders will be outside in the modular units, as well as the Ag Science CTAE class will be in a double wide outside of the building. And I believe, Lisa, we have some pictures on the bistro? We had some, here we go. So we had the signage package was installed. So this is the entrance into the bistro area with the server stand or hostess stand. And the artwork was selected with Chef Amy and the students and the Heritage Committee as well. And they'll have the menu every day. And I believe we have the ribbon cutting ceremony on the 19th of January. So if y'all don't have it on your calendars, if you could put that on there, the 19th we'll be having ribbon cutting. These are some of the students getting things ready. This is a dining area for approximately 20 people. And you can see in the back, so there's some of the things in the Heritage Committee was they wanted pictures, images of Yellow Jackets, so that those were captured and placed on the wall, as well as there's a projector in there, so if you have a presentation or a community group and you want to watch the Super Bowl, have your Super Bowl party here, I'm sure Chef Amy would be open to that. And then this is I guess the historical wall, so it's kind of the story of Bernie Harris Lyons School. And it's kind of interesting, the picture on the bottom left, if you have time to go look at it, that's actually, there was a culinary class in that facility back in the day, so kind of going full circle with that building is now we have a culinary program for the students today.
Good.
There you go. And that concludes my update, if you have any questions.
Oh, I'm really excited about this cafe now opening up. And so this culinary change to give us it's more of a restaurant kind of environment now,
Yes.
right? So that was part of the original plan, and we just didn't kind of go through on that. Is this going to be open to the public, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, I think it'll be open a couple of days a week. I don't know if all the particulars have been worked out on the time, but she'll start off kind of with a limited menu, a couple of days a week for a certain time period, where the students prepare the meals. The public and staff can go there and have lunch. I think she was kind of pegging maybe $12 a meal for lunch, which isn't bad.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The ribbon cutting, is it going to be planned so that it does not overlap with the Freedom Breakfast that we all have tables and have invitations to?
The Freedom Breakfast will be on the 16th this year. It was originally planned for the 19th, and there's information in your board update about that. But it will be held on Tuesday, the 16th, and the ribbon cutting's on the 19th. So that
Thank
won't
you.
interfere.
Thank you for that, because I absolutely missed that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for the tour. The tour was really good to actually see everything we've talked about and what you all have conceptualized.
Well, I get excited when you get to see the bones of the building. That's what's important to me. I mean, it looks nice and is great when it's all done, but how it goes together and everything that it takes to put it together is what excites me. And it's neat that we're able to show you guys that so that you understand what goes into one of these projects. It's not something that you throw up overnight, and it does take a lot of time and effort and money. So, but we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have our facilities update by Dr. Askew.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This month, we shared with the board as an informational item our deferred maintenance matrix. During our last board meeting, we talked a lot about our HVAC. Thanks, Mark. We talked a lot about our HVAC, and we certainly have those projects in process now, and we're thankful to you guys for supporting those. But this matrix also gives you insight into all of the other projects that we have going on in plant services. It's comprehensive, and it represents the synthesis of several sources. First, an external audit that Mr. Gilbert had done in 2015. Also an internal assessment that we did in 2022, and then a principal wish list. It's a living document, so it grows and changes all the time. The projects that are highlighted in green are those that we have completed. Those in yellow are next up for consideration. That's really the gist of it. Certainly myself and Mr. Bailey are present to answer any questions that you might have about the document or the projects.
Thank you. Any additional questions or discussion?
It's a lot.
There's a lot to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move forward and tackle number 6. These are our policy updates. Dr. Hooker, is that it for your facilities reports and number with
Yes,
item
ma'am.
5?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we will move to item 6. These are our policy updates. And we have a few things under here, so we'll start with A. These are our policies for approval. See if I can switch back over. I think our policy for approval is our instructional program philosophy. That is board policy IA. And so I want to open the floor for any follow-up discussion or any additional information that you all have to add. Dr. Hooker.
So on policy IA, well, let me first.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you. On policy IA, there's just a big divide in terms of the language that was there before that seemed to be more instructional and informative and directional in terms of what was expected and in terms of what we were trying to build. I didn't see that level of, gosh, I guess maybe it's more specificity in this new policy. It sounds very soft, and I'm concerned about how it supports the other policy that we're going to be looking at also today. I believe it is policy IHF, and there it is very specifically, I can see the connection between policy IA and IHF because there are particular areas of study identified, there are required procedures identified. I want to understand how this policy as written today, as proposed, literally incorporates the requirements from the state as well as from the board itself in expressing what we're trying to build. Does that make any sense at all to you? Because it might be something someone has to sit down with me and decode, because it is challenging to try and understand why we would take out the specific things that are required, we thought, by law, by policy, to actually have, golly gee, and I guess it's kind of, it is inspirational or aspirational, but it should reflect the values and the requirements of the state integrated into it. It kind of says to me that since 1983, when this policy was originated to address some specific gaps in education and learning, we have worked on these things. Now, whether we've been successful or not is a whole nother story, but at least we knew specifically what we were trying to do. That's what it sounds like when I read the language that's being taken out. When I read the new language, it feels like there's no true direction, that it's kind of out here. We have we want to do these things because they reflect our strategic plan, but I don't see where we are incorporating, and maybe we're not anymore, the required procedures for graduation, the areas of study, the requirements, all of those things. When I take those and push them against this new document, I'm not feeling or seeing any connectivity there, or it's not that there's no connectivity. It feels like anything that we do will fit under that new policy, as opposed to it being directed toward graduation, achievement, test scores, and those kinds of things. Am I reading this incorrectly? Because I'm happy to be corrected here, but it just feels like it's aspirational and not really holding us accountable.
This policy is not required by law, and so in researching how other districts have decided to word this policy, approximately, I think it's 20 to 25, had their updated and current mission, vision, and belief statements. So we went with that. Some of the things that you mentioned are included in other policies or policies required by law, but this is not one of those.
So if it's not required by law, but it has been here since 1983, have we been operating under this policy? I thought we were.
Can you say that again? It's hard for me to hear you.
If it's not required by law, why do we have it? And then secondly, it's been in place since 1983. What is our performance like under that policy? Or are we simply not using it? I don't understand.
Ms. Davis, as Ms. Bonet stated, several of these things are under other policies. I do see that this was revised in 2018. If you would like to have a sit-down meeting to go over this line by line and we explain it to you, I'll be glad to schedule a meeting at the beginning of the year to address this. But again, this is not required by law. If you look at other school districts with the policies similar to this, you will see similar things to ours. But we will be glad to sit down with you and to go in detail. Are there any other members who would like to be a part of that meeting? Okay, you would? We'll be glad to offer that in January. All right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions or discussion? Ms. Hall?
Dr. Gant, my apologies to my colleagues and to Dr. Hooker. I was actually looking at, a prior contract. Did I skip or did we go, I didn't hear us go over the Gaines School and the facilities update, and I did not miss the adoption of the agenda, so I don't know if that was pushed to a later portion in the meeting.
We didn't, you're asking if we discussed Gaines School specifically in the facilities report, Ms. Hall?
Yes, yes, correct. So I have questions about that with the supporting documentation. So could he please approach the mic again?
Sure.
Thank you.
Dr. Askew, could you please approach the mic?
And may I ask if we can circle back to that once we're done with the policies for approval?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional feedback or questions related to our policies for approval?
Is this going to go forward for approval, or are we going to pull it until we have this discussion in January?
Is it necessary for us to pull it? Is that the board request that we pull it? Would you guys like it
It's
pulled?
mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having a look at this and having a discussion with you before we approve this, if that's
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looks like Ms. Butts. Ms. Butts, can you speak in your microphone? And I'll go with the will of the board. It's not I don't necessarily have a preference, particularly since we always have the spot here for future policies for discussion. But if that's the will, it looks like of almost half of our colleagues, I think that would be fine.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions regarding this policy? Okay, we're just going to interject here and address Ms. Hall's questions, and then we can continue with policy.
Thank you, Dr. Askew.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I was pulling up the actual contract number, so I make sure I got it right from our September board meeting. When I look at the attachments, the supporting documentation for the playground, how we spent $13,000 on the engineered wood fiber. How much would that cover? Because I know we're not able to do grass or sod, or has that been updated?
So what we're actually going to do, so that there's equity between the new playgrounds we're installing, there's a separate purchase that was under $50,000, so it didn't come for board approval, that we're funding out of plant services that's going to do the pour-and-play surface between or beneath most of those play areas, and then the wood fiber will be in the areas that we couldn't cover with pour-and-play. So the majority of it, Mr. Bailey, is going to be covered in the pour-and-play.
So that would alleviate the mud bowls and the mud patches at Gaines?
So that's a different thing. And, you know, Dr. Hooker and I were talking about that the other day. So the thing behind Gaines is, and we kind of got to decide from a landscape perspective what we want to do. And not to mix issues, but we also have a similar issue going on at Barrow. Like if you've ever been over there when there's a heavy rain, and you know we have the wood chips spread out over there, but if you go behind Barrow, just wait till there's a heavy rain day and drive back there. All the wood chips are in the street, the playground's flooded, it's a mess. We need to do the same thing at Gaines. There's some landscaping that needs to take place, but we need to decide what we want to do because there's no irrigation back there. So if we're gonna plant grass or if we're gonna sod it, you gotta have irrigation because there's constant foot traffic. If you just roll some sod out back there or throw some seed out, it's not gonna grow with the traffic that's going on back there. So we really need to decide how deeply we're gonna invest back there. It wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, for us to go back there and do, 3 acres of turf. Who does that? That's 3 football fields, So yes, grass for that whole area is a more natural cover, but there's some things that have got to take place in front of it to bring it all up to where it needs to be. So those are, deeper discussions we need to have. But for now, they did get the soccer field just like they've got over at Burke's. They're going to get the new playground equipment that you see there. There's going to be the pour and play, and then the wood chips will fill the rest where there's no pour and play area.
Thank you. Would you, in those discussions, be able to just let the board know how we can support making sure that there's equity on that playground so those children don't have just those mud bowls? Because it's becoming an equity issue, colleagues. I don't know if you know it or not, just with the amount of clothes and these children's clothes being damaged, families not being able to replace those uniforms. It is truly an equity issue there. So whatever the board can do to support this happens sooner rather than later, please do let us know, and I hope my colleagues would join. My second question would be with the 588 ramps that we purchased, where will those ramps be located? Are they one for each little area for the playground playscapes, or are they on the perimeters? Where are they located?
And Mr. Bailey can speak to the exact placement on those.
They'll be with each stand of equipment. I'm sorry.
Can you speak in the mic,
With
please?
each stand of equipment. So each place where they have them, they got access to.
Yes.
So, for instance, I printed this out, the artist rendering. There'll be a ramp for them to be able to access this pour and play. And then as you move to the other sets, such as the swing sets, they too will have a break and a ramp to get in. So everything will be accessible.
Thank you. Those are all of my questions. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dr. Anderson?
Her questions prompted one that I had when I looked at those pictures earlier, but then I forgot. It looks as though one of the accessible swings are in a separate pour and play space from the other swings, which is not, from what I can tell, standard for swing sets that have an accessible swing. They're always sort of attached so that there's not that feeling of isolation from your peers. And so when I saw that picture, it begged the question, is that really a separate pour and play spot for the accessible swing, or was I just looking at it wrong?
You're correct. As we set out there, currently configured on that grounds, that particular swing set is by itself. So we were just doing a one-for-one swap. Moving it, that wouldn't probably be a problem.
Sorry. Yeah, from the public health community, that is a best practice of ensuring that there's no distinct separation with children.
We can do that.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move forward with letter number 6, letter B, and these are our policies that we requested to review. If you're referencing your agenda in Assembly, it's policy GBRH, which is our professional personal leave and absences, and then policy JDD, which is student suspension. And so I'll open the floor for GBRH first, but this is more so conversation, and it gives the district some idea of what we are looking for, as far as changes we are looking for, so that they can then bring a draft policy back to us. And so, policy GBRHH, that's our professional leaves and absences. And I know this was one that I brought forward, but before I share any thoughts, I do want to open the floor as you've reread through this policy, just to see if there are any thoughts that you all have that you would like to share. Okay. All right, and so I left my original notes at home, I'm sorry. But there were a couple of things that I was hoping we could at least explore as we take another look at the policy. One was the idea, and that's not here, but I do know that what we had before, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, is that we used to have like a leave bank, a sick leave bank, really for employees, and so that if they ran out of sick leave, and I think one of the areas as we're sort of on this other end of the pandemic, a lot of times I think something like that might be worth exploring. And then also the idea of educational leave. Over the past, I would say probably a couple of years, I've heard from a few teachers and community members, and I don't want to suggest majority, but I have heard from some that it could be helpful. So for instance, when graduation, when that changes, like these past couple of years, I think graduation has been during the day, maybe, and most times, I think under the previous administration, when we had this conversation, it was shared that most times, like, building leaders are pretty flexible with, if somebody wants to leave and go to their child or their grandchild's graduation. But a lot of that depends on the building leader. I do know that at least that this used to be something at UGA. It wasn't, I think it was only 8 hours, but it was still something, so that when an employee needs to leave or needs to go and attend something, it just sort of formalized it so that it wouldn't really depend on like who the supervisor was at that time. And so I had some thoughts around that to see if that might be something particularly that may be beneficial to our colleagues. And then also, just in general, the number of days that individuals are able to earn. This is under E, and the personal leave. And right now, from what I understand, years 1 through 4, of the personal leave that individuals earn, 3 may be used for sick leave. And let's see, I was trying to find where, like, the total amount of leave, is it 7 days that people accrue of personal leave in general?
Of sick leave, they accrue 1.25 days per month worked. And then of the sick leave that is accrued, they can use up to, if they're 0 to 4 years, they can use up to 3 of those sick days for personal reasons, and then so on as you see in the policy. Okay,
thank you. I think I had those reversed. But the 1.25 hours that individuals are able to accrue, I would love to explore what other districts are doing, and it may be standard, that 1.25, but I would love to see us, there are areas that we can't compensate financially, whether it's related to wages and things like that. But this, to me, in an indirect way, I don't have any proof, but might impact culture if we're able to offer just a little more sick leave that individuals are able to accrue. Also, that relates to this under C, the classified PSERS unused sick leave. And if you see, you have to have earned a good bit, and most times, well, we're paying out our classified staff. And so I do believe if that sick leave amount that individuals earn each month is increased, then it will have implications here too. And at least in the event that our unclassified individuals do receive a check, they may receive more. So those were my initial thoughts.
Dr. Gant, just to provide a point of clarification about how, about the earning of sick leave, that is standard across the state, that they earn 1.25 days. That's not to say that we can't explore something else, but that's the state standard. And there's only a certain amount of sick leave for certified employees who are in TRS, or classified employees who are in TRS, that the teacher's retirement system will accept upon retirement. So those are just some things to be considered as well.
Okay. Thank you for that information, Dr. Blankenship. Any additional discussion or thoughts? Dr. Anderson.
So when I looked at C, for the 120 plus days of unused sick leave that can be cashed out, it's capped at $67.50, or is it $67.50 plus?
It's capped at $67.50. Those were amounts that we determined when we set this forth in policy. That is something that could be revisited in terms of what amount is paid out. Different systems who have a similar policy do different things, and so we could gather that information. We looked at it at the time that we set these amounts, but we'd be happy to look at it again.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Dr. Yeager.
I guess if we're going to revisit this policy, do we want to reach out to the Teachers Advisory Board or some of the other staff boards, the bus drivers? And I don't know, it seems like we might have an open invitation to get some feedback before we jump in and do stuff. And I mean, you've heard from some employees, it sounds like, but I don't suspect we've heard from all of those who might have an opinion. So I don't know if we want to open that can of worms, but it seems more inclusive to open it to everyone than just to the people that have spoken up.
That's a really good idea.
I think that would be great. I think, that's certainly a district decision that I would support in the event that it's possible. I know that Dr. Hooker and your staff meet with our teachers and actually drivers and transportation pretty regularly.
And if it helps at all, some of our other large CCS or Athens-Clarke County employers do offer 8 hours of educational leave. So it might be something to think about when people are shopping around for where to work in Athens-Clarke County.
All right. Thank you. So we will move forward to our next policy, and this, sorry, give me a second. Oh. Thank you. JDD, policy JDD, and this is student suspensions, and this was one that the board wanted to revisit as well. And so I'm gonna turn the floor over to Ms. Hull first, if there is any additional just information you would like to share. This was the policy that you wanted us to visit so that the district can have an idea of what our thoughts are as they decide to draft or modify this policy.
Oh, sure. So the specific policy, and I apologize if it was miscommunicated, it was actually looking at our disciplinary hearing, but I actually do have comments and thoughts about this policy as well. So I'm happy to give those too. I have a really big concern with how we address our out-of-school suspension and our expulsions with not allowing our students to return on the campus. My concern is that as we really embrace the community and schools approach and we start to offer more services or it's just more offerings for families on school district property, I don't know if that would prevent families from being able to really embrace those services. We've talked about things like offering mental health support for families, not just students, and making use of those. We're doing a lot more with our resource fairs, our community fairs, and when I think about families that may have multiple children or just resources, I mean, different events on campus, not looking at things like extracurricular activities, but barring a student from participating on anything on school district property during that time, I think could exclude a lot of families in ways that we weren't really thinking about in doing that. I know that we do have some of our GD programs or classes, I think, on school district property. I don't know if that would alleviate people from being able to attend those types of programs and things like that. So just a consideration, that was the main thing in sticking out with the out-of-school suspension. I do think our students, or excuse me, our district does a really good job in terms of starting to do our manifestation determinations and making sure that our special education students are making sure their rights are being honored as they go through that process. So that was really my main concern that I wanted to express with this particular policy.
And if I may ask, Ms. Hall, are there any particular areas, like I see where long-term out-of-school suspension, where it states in the policy, means the denial to a student of the right to attend school and take part in any school-related functions for more than 10 days. So that is sort of related to the first half of your comment. And then later in this policy, it begins to talk about special education suspension review. Are there any ideas or recommendations or anything like that that might be helpful for the district as they take a look at this policy and possibly bring a draft forward that you have at this time? Or certainly that can be in January too when they bring a draft, but just to sort of help guide that process.
Not at this moment. There is new legislation that's coming down the pipeline early 2024, so I don't know if that would affect how the special education component, and we have our staff, we have our attorney who would be able to let us know if that happened, but I would be happy to sit down with Ms. Bonez or with Dr. Hooker or anyone before our January meeting to flesh this policy out or give ideas before a draft is presented, if that's helpful.
Any additional follow-up? Thank you, Ms. Hull. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We are, excuse me, going to be having conversations about our disciplinary hearing process. So that is something that is that's planned. In fact, we're meeting tomorrow, Dr. Hooker, myself, Ms. Palmer, and Mr. Pruitt, to talk a little bit more about the hearing process itself, so that we can prepare for that January meeting. I understand that that's separate from this policy, but Dr. Anderson just reminded me, and so, yeah. Okay, all right. All right. Okay, we'll move forward to just item C. Remember that we said that we would just sort of have this on here as a standing item. Right now, we do have the two policies that we just requested for review, but item C is just any future policies for discussion from the board. Are there any that need to be added? Again, all of them, as we move forward, we'll try to get through them, as they're added, but obviously if it's a whole lot of them, then that may take a little time, but we still want to be sure we have this standing item. So are there any additional policies at this time? Ms. Davis.
So my question is, with our new strategic direction, have we run the policies that are operational through that to ensure that we're in alignment?
Ms. Davis, did you say how do we or have we?
Have we? identified those policies that are impacted in our new strategic plan, by our new strategic plan. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's a question for Dr. Hooker as they decide which policies that will need to be brought forth. So she's asking, has the district started the process of looking at our policies to be sure that they line up or fall within the framework of the strategic plan? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. Thank you.
No, that is not something that we've looked at, but we'll be glad to do that, Ms. Davis.
Only if you find it a priority. So I'm not trying to rearrange anybody's schedule or anything, but I do want to, this is a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, is that right?
You're correct.
Then I'm totally looking for that alignment to make sure that we don't have those conflicts with not understanding where we're going because we're following a policy that doesn't match our strategic direction. Thank you.
Thank you for that input.
And I wonder if that might be something. I know our March agenda is pretty full, but I mean that does sound like a heavy lift. And so I'm wondering, well, two things. One, as we have these 3 areas for policy, and really any item, I think the district tries to align it, or at least show us where it is. But I certainly hear your point, Ms. Davis, like with understanding the framework. I wonder if that might be something that may be where our retreat, or, you know, like more of a special call session where we can take a look at those things, or at least hear from the district, might be more doable.
I like that.
Okay. All right, well, we will move forward to our business items, and we have several business items for discussion for consent. And so as we go through these, if you could just let us know if these items, if you would like to keep them on consent, or if you would like to take action on them separately, and then certainly if you have any questions about them or further discussion, I want to invite you to do that as well. So this first item is our work session meeting minutes for November 9th, as well as the board meeting minutes. Okay, the financial report.
Consent?
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Did I say consent? Not consent. I'm sorry. I'd just like a separate vote for that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, now would be a good time to have discussion about that so that when we get in our meeting, we can take action. Any follow-up discussion, Ms. Davis, or questions you have about the financial report?
We can have Mr. Griner come and present to you and answer any questions that you may have with the information that we share with you. Mr. Griner, if you would come to the podium.
You have before you the October 31st financials. Keeping in mind this is 4 months into our fiscal year. Actual revenues, a little over 106 million, about 6 million more than what we had anticipated just based on historical trends. Some of that's timing of our property tax money that comes in this time of year, October, November. We've collected 86% of our property tax money as of the end of October, so that's a definite good trend there. Taxes were due October 20th, so November has definitely started declining, as you'll see in the report you get tomorrow in the board update, just kind of a snapshot of November. Expenditures, actual expenditures, close to a little over 65.5 million, about 2.7 more than we had budgeted. Again, this is just some timing of expenditures, no concerns there. General fund has a fund balance at the end of October. As I mentioned in the last board meeting, these 2 months will be our highest fund balance month, so we're almost 94.6 million. We had budgeted right at 91.5, so we're definitely trending above that. let's see, I mentioned the 86% on property taxes. Lisa, if you could, this shows the fund balance, is kind of where we're at. The next one shows our revenues. If you look at the very last column there, the blue and the orange, you can see our actuals ahead of budget on revenues of about 6.8 million. Again, that's the timing of those property tax receipts. Lisa, if you could scroll down one more for expenditures, you'll see we were slightly above budget for expenditures, but only about a little over 400,000. So no concerns there. Again, the rest of it's just a supplemental information. I'll be glad to answer any questions y'all may have. In the board update tomorrow, you'll have a snapshot of November, and then that's what I've been trying to do. And then when we get to January, we'll do the full presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or further discussion?
You know, for me, to have you present that information, even though it's in our packet, for our listening audience, I think it's just important, since we are the guardians of those funds, to actually have a discussion about those so that people can actually hear where we are as opposed to guessing. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate this extraordinary spreadsheet that you sent us as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ms. Davis.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
And so from my understanding, this is not on consent, correct?
Not on consent.
Okay. All right, so item B is being pulled from, well, will not be on consent. What about personnel?
Consent for me?
Okay. All right. The district-wide projector purchase.
Consent.
Okay. The main gym bleacher replacement contract for Cedar Shoals. Okay. The Cedar Shoals projector purchase.
Could I ask a question about that? Just a few minutes or seconds ago, we just said that we were going to do a district-wide projector. Is Cedar Shoals no longer part of the district, or is there a special thing that we need?
It's separate for the construction schedule. This one on its here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you speak into the microphone?
It's a separate project due to the construction that's occurring at Cedar Shoals.
Okay. All right. The Chromebook purchase. This is item G.
Consent, but I have a question.
Okay.
Are these Chromebooks being issued with Windows operating system, or is it still Chrome?
It's still Chrome.
Still Chrome. So for our kids that do dual enrollment and do the course with Athens Tech, they have to have a Windows operating system. I know that at one time that Comp 1000 class at the Career Academy had a room set up for them to do that. Are we still in compliance with that?
I believe we are, that they have Windows computers at the Career Academy, to my knowledge.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Do we want to keep this on consent?
Consent is fine.
Okay. Item H, this is our 24-25 program of study. Dr. Yeager.
The document still says 23, 24, just noting.
We'll correct that. Sorry. That's an error on our part.
So if I may, reading those two things, the policy and then the career, the required study, I'm like, does this still match up? These are those basic things that we don't have any control over. We can't waive these because we're a charter system or any of that, right?
And we cannot waive these. This is state requirements for the courses that we're offering that are in the program of study. And if I'm incorrect, Dr. Scott or Blankenship, please correct me. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Yeager and then Dr. Anderson.
And these have not changed from last year, is that correct? Okay.
You're correct.
I mean, I guess it didn't change from last year, but I don't remember seeing the AP service learning credit and the AP, there was a service learning and then a capstone credit. I don't remember seeing that in the previous programs of study. It doesn't mean it wasn't in there. I just don't remember that. Is that something that our students participate widely in?
Hi, good evening. Yes,
Good evening.
actually, that's one of the goals of teaching and learning and the curriculum coordinators to bring AP Capstone and that service learning as a new opportunity for 24-25. It's a research-rich program for students, and right now we're working with both of our traditional high schools to identify students who will be successful in there, and we feel very hopeful that both schools will have a nice set of inaugural students to work through that program.
Yeah, and just as a comment, I think that it was, when I read it, it looked like a really wonderful opportunity to potentially increase enrollment for particularly our minoritized populations who are underwhelmingly enrolled in AP and dual credit classes at Ccsd. So I really loved the blurb in those two and thought that that was a wonderful opportunity for us to engage better with AP credits with those students. And then the second question that I had, and I'm not sure if that was for you, the Georgia Virtual Academy and the Clark Virtual Academy, has enrollment continued to be consistent post-COVID, or are we seeing a drop in enrollment in those virtual options? What's happening there?
From my understanding and works with Dana Sigmund, those numbers have continued to increase through COVID, which has been impressive and interesting to me, seeing that virtual academy be fairly successful compared to other spots that either I have knowledge of or worked with. And so students have increased their success rate with credit attainment as compared to last year as well. And so something that we've continued to talk about as an option for students, it seems to be something students are interested in Clark County and doing well with as they continue to get to understand how to be successful in it, and as we continue to identify the right students for the program.
And as far as numbers, right now we have 123 students who are enrolled in our virtual, and 58 of those are full-time virtual students. And it's projected that this coming semester there will be 140 students that are enrolled, and 80 of those would be full-time.
Thank you. I was looking for where you were talking. Where is she? Thank you for those numbers. And so is that capacity, are the needs being met despite the increase in capacity in those virtual programs?
Yes. So one of the things we're actually looking at and working towards right now, because we're seeing a growing need for Spanish, virtual Spanish, and so we're looking at our options for that to make sure that we're able to offer all levels of Spanish. But with that, then Dana Sigmund is always actively looking for ways to ensure that he's offering a variety of courses for our students that have opted to do the virtual. But when we think about our students that are not full-time, then it's because they are looking at doing courses that aren't necessarily offered in our high schools, but they want to expand or look at courses outside of what we're able to offer, and they'll do that through the virtual setting.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so our program of study, do we want to keep this on consent with the updated, with the understanding that the date will be updated? Okay, all right, consent. Early Head Start eligibility, recruitment, selection, enrollment, and attendance.
Consent?
Okay. All right, so that's on consent. The approval of the 2024 meeting calendar. Let me switch back over because I think there were some.
Consent.
I saw that.
Yes, Dr. Anderson.
Ms. Palmer, what is insert? it's for year mark, okay.
So I know at one point, and this may not be even relevant at this time, and it may be something we want to review at any other time. We are at least a semester in, I think, to our meeting once a month versus twice a month. And I know over the past 6 months, there has been feedback regarding preferences for one over the other. And so I want to be sure I acknowledge that and put that on the floor, and invite any discussion related to that. This calendar here is, it continues with that meeting, but certainly the floor is open to discuss if we want to move forward with that, or if board members are feeling that we've done enough with the pilot and we need to go back. So I just want to be sure I make space for those discussions.
I actually enjoy the one meeting schedule. I think it's more efficient. I think it forces us to have the presentations, have the information, have the discussion. I think it has been a lot as we kind of get used to it, but I think as we get on track, so to speak, as we kind of get with it, kind of get into the routine of it, it will become easier. I think when we consider things like having childcare at meetings, if that's still going to be a consideration, it probably is a lot easier, a lot cheaper to have that done for one meeting versus 2 meetings. So I think there are ways that we can continue to refine the process, but I'm definitely in favor of the one meeting per month.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hull. Any additional thoughts or feedback?
I've actually come to embrace the one meeting concept, as long as the agenda is not overwhelming. And so literally, on today's agenda, I promise you, when I looked at this last, I didn't see anything beyond the program of study. So I don't know when that was there, or if I just zoned out and thought I was done or what, but yeah, the agenda, the one meeting concept seems to work well, as long as we can keep the agenda not so heavy that you've got to spend, the entire 2 weeks trying to prepare for it. It's a lot to process.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis. Dr. Yeager, Dr. Evans, and Ms. Futz.
I actually like the 2 meetings, but I'm adjusting to the one meeting. I agree with Ms. Davis, as long as the agenda is not too heavy. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I would echo, I think it's an adjustment. I like the 2 meetings, but it is an adjustment, and certainly the will of the board. I think as a matter of governance, it certainly encourages us to work a little bit harder, because the community, they need to be aware of what's happening. And when we had that week in between, it gave us that time to consider, and then also time to rethink things and to hear from our constituents. And I don't know that we have that same amount of time, but I do think we're adjusting and just having to think of creative ways that we don't sacrifice governance, and being sure that we're representing individuals at the expense of expediency. And so, yeah. All right, so if there are no other, Dr. Evans, let's see, Dr. Yeager, did I see your hand or no, like before? Okay. Okay, Dr. Anderson? Okay, all right, should we keep this on consent? Okay, all right. Our network switch purchase. Consent? Okay, would you like that to say on consent, Ms. Davis, or you need to pull it off consent? Do you want to pull it, or does it need to stay? Okay. All right. If you have some follow-up questions, Ms. Davis, after you read it, perhaps maybe share those out with the group. They may, yep. All right. The approval of website hosting.
I have questions.
Okay. All right. Ms. Davis.
And again, this is, again, I didn't see this, and when I pulled this up to go through this. Oh, this is a local company. Is that right? Or is it?
It's a Georgia company. It services nationwide accounts.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to read this too. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so do we want to keep that on consent?
Yeah, I won't hold up the process because I didn't get a chance to read it, so it stays on consent if that's what everybody else wants to do.
Okay. Wait, and that was K, right? Oh, that was L. Okay. Okay, and we did K. Did I skip K or we did? Okay. Okay, okay. And then last are our field trips. All right, we'll keep that on consent. That brings us to adjournment. We are adjourned at 6:23 p.m. and we'll begin our business meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you.
can keep it together.
I think I'm just like tired. I'm like, why did I feel this strong urge to laugh?
I mean, for some of the times, it's just like a reinforcement that like you're not the only one who's just like, are you for, you know? But I do see like, if you're gonna sit on this corner, like you gotta have like a,
Yeah.
which I'm also working on, so I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
And when I thought she was really getting ready to go, I just turned and shared the
Yeah.
still not like.
All right. Whoops. Test. Testing.
Hello, hello.
Good evening. Can you hear me? I got some pizza, but I'm gonna get cake before we go to. Who cooked that pound cake?
Miss-
I'm not doing
Test. Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. We are going to call our 7 p.m. board meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Dr. Hooker, if you would conduct roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley, Ms. Claudia Butts,
Here.
Ms. Linda Davis,
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager,
Here.
Mr. Tim Denton, Dr. Mumby Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant,
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hull,
Here.
and Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So we have a quorum. We will move to item 3, and that is our silent meditation and pledge of allegiance. If you would first join me for a moment of silent meditation. Thank you. If you're able to stand, if you would join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Thank you. We're going to move forward to item 4, our recognitions and awards. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you, Dr. Gann. At this time, I'll ask Dr. Cindy Moore to come forth to present our awards.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker, and good evening, Dr. Gant, board members. Our only recognition for the night is our Employee of the Month for December, so we'll get started with that. Whoops, it's not there. While we're looking for that, I'll introduce our Employee of the Month, Ms. Renita Bolton, who is the East Side Bus Router for our Transportation Department, and ask her to come up. Now, while she's making her way up, I'll tell you all, just off the script, that Ms. Bolton had the kind of reaction I just love. She was looking around kind of to see who we were talking about, and then she was very surprised, and then she was a little tearful, and very appreciative. So I think we picked well this month. Let me tell you a little bit about Ms. Bolton. Ms. Bolton is a proud alumna of Cedar Shoals High School and has now been a dedicated employee of CCSD for 28 years as of this week, correct? Her dedication and exemplary service was summed up by CCSD Director of Transportation, Sherrod Swift, who said, "Renita is an advocate for all people, students, drivers, and monitors. She believes in all of us making it happen to safely transport students on a daily basis." Ms. Bolton's nomination came from a recently retired CCSD educator who said that she consistently goes above and beyond in her role to ensure that student transportation runs smoothly. One example of her commitment to training and support is that, along with creating efficient bus routes, she takes the extra step of riding along with newer bus drivers, providing them with hands-on guidance
that ensures they are familiar with the locations of more challenging addresses, contributing to the safe and timely transportation of students. She was also commended for her readiness to step in and volunteer as a bus driver when there are shortages. Our nominator concluded with this quote: "Renita Bolton's longstanding service, proactive approach, and selfless commitment to her role make her a standout employee who deserves to be recognized for her outstanding contributions to the Clark County School District. Her actions exemplify the spirit of teamwork, dedication, and service that positively impacts the entire school community. Please join me in congratulating our December Employee of the Month, Renita Bolton." We'd like to thank the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce and the many local businesses that support our Employee of the Month program and contributed to the gift bag that Ms. Bolton is receiving tonight. And at this time, I'd like to ask her friends, family, and co-workers to come on up. Let's have a picture taken with you. And then we're going to go over to Dr. Evans' side of the room for our picture with the board in just a moment, okay? Come on up. While they're making their way up, I'll remind you that anyone in the CCSD community can nominate an Employee of the Month. And you can find more information about how to nominate and place your nomination using the information on the screen. There you go. Ms. Bolton, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Let's give Ms. Bolton another round of applause, and again, a thank you. We appreciate your service and your commitment, and we hope you're here another 28 years. And finally tonight, I would like to bring everyone's attention to an honor that CCSD recently received. As I'm sure most of you are aware, CCSD was named one of the 2023 Leading Edge Award winners by the Georgia School Boards Association. This award recognizes school systems throughout the state for their innovative design and implementation of projects and programs that are having a significant positive impact on student achievement and engagement. CCSD won the award based on its collaboration with the University of North Georgia's Oconee campus for the Nighthawk Student Opportunities for Accelerated Readiness, or SOAR, Summer Academic Enrichment Program. This 3-week camp-like program is held on the UNG campus in Watkinsville and is designed for middle school students who are economically disadvantaged and or English language learner households who do not qualify for summer school, but who CCSD believes would benefit from a program that keeps them academically engaged during the summer break. It is a tuition-free program with all transportation and program costs funded. Congratulations to all the staff and teachers who have played a vital role in the success of this program, and many thanks to UNG's Dr. Gary Adcox for his partnership in leading this program. We look forward to participating again in the coming year. Dr. Hooker, that concludes our recognitions for this evening. I'll now turn the floor back to you and to Dr. Gant and the board to share any recognitions they may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I want to open the floor for, well, congratulations again, Ms. Bolton, well deserved. I want to open the floor up to board colleagues for any announcements or celebrations that you have at this time. We'll start with Dr. Evans.
Thank you, Dr. Gann. Thank you, everyone. First, I'd like to thank everyone for the well wishes that I received over the past few months. I really missed you guys, like a whole lot. And watching you on YouTube just isn't the same. So Of course, I do get to say things about Dr. Hooker that he can't hear because I'm on YouTube, but that's okay. The thing I'd really like to bring to attention is this was the first year that we in CCSD had a esports program that was established at Clark Central High School under Sean Simpson, who was our Teacher of the Year last year. They competed in the state competition where one team took 32nd and the other team went to the Elite Eight. Esports is a very up-and-coming thing. Most professional sports have an esports team that compete usually the same night or the same day as the actual professional team. And so I just wanted to recognize those students who participated. I'd also like to thank Sean Simpson for taking a real leadership role in this and building a bridge with UGA's esports community that really did help out and worked with these students. And if you ever get a chance, they have a Twitch channel, you should check them out. They're really, really good. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Hall?
Yes, I got to hang out with the really cool kids over at Cedar Shoals High School and learned a lot of great things. They have a lot to say. Our students have been encouraged to come and give public comment, but it was exciting to hear things like they want more course offerings. They're interested in expanding the different classes there. So Dr. Hooker has pointed them in the right direction to go through leadership, but it was really refreshing to hear students really excited about learning and wanting to have more classes. So that was pretty cool.
Thank you, Ms. Hull. Dr. Yeager, okay, thank you. Ms. Davis, any announcements or celebrations?
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, enjoy the break, take some time for yourselves, and go buy a special gift just for you.
All right. All right, thank you. Ms. Butts? No? Birthday, it's today, wait, Saturday. I was like, wait, is it today? Okay, happy early birthday. Yeah. All right, Dr. Anderson? Okay, and I don't have any announcements at this time. We will move forward to public comments. This is number 5, and just a couple of reminders. According to my notes, we have one person who is here. Thank you for coming. A couple of reminders about public comment, which are found in policy BCBI. I'll just highlight a few. Each individual speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. And at this point, remarks must be concluded. No speaker will indulge in personal attacks, and all comments are to be addressed directly to the Board of Education. At a board meeting, board members will not respond to questions or comments from the public. The district may respond to public input as needed or appropriate within 10 working days. And then lastly, the use of obscene, profane, vulgar, physically threatening, or abusive remarks will not be allowed. Loud and boisterous conduct or comments by speakers or members of the audience will not be allowed. According to my notes here, we have one speaker, and that is Derek Desaussure. Desaussure. Sewer. Sewer. I apologize. You can come up to the podium. Yep, that's right.
Before I start my 3 minutes, can I just say thank you to everyone here, including Dr. Hooker in particular and you, Ms. Grant in particular, because we have met at the beginning of the school year, so we have introduced ourselves, so you do know me and everything else. So it feels good, but once again, I'd like to thank every board member here, because I know your job is not easy, as well as the other members and other staff and members who work very hard. So, oh gee whiz, the clock has already started. All right, I have 3 ideas. Why is education so important? there are many reasons that can be explored. There's a famous quote, and I think everybody knows this quote: "The people shall perish because of a lack of knowledge." And my three ideas consist of, one, a clothing closet that would be international. Why? Because we have a lot of kids that practically throw away their clothes in the school, right? And instead of throwing them away, why not send them abroad? To Africa in particular, maybe South America, because those children over there need them as well as education, right? But we can explore more with that. And also, the student athlete. Now that moniker now has been posed with the colleges, right? Why not let it trickle down to our middle school? This is something very important that I saw, where we can begin by making a poster and for every school, not only the middle school, our high school as well, of kids in their athletic uniform, as well as children in their educational cap and gown. And that could be not taking anything away, but adding on instead. So when you go into every school, you will see that picture of the student athlete. That is a highlight of our educational forum here. And also, the last one I have is school building schools. This is also looking at we taking on that responsibility of schools building schools. Now, I have seen where you have individuals, you have nonprofit organizations, you also have maybe large corporations. But why not schools building schools? And this, like I said, this is all international and also intertwined for our other kids. Oh, I'm running out of time. But anyway, the great leaders who made it possible in the past here in Georgia are Martin Luther King, who believed in social change, and Jimmy Carter, who believed in global change as well. Thank you, board members. I wish I had more time. But anyway, the three ideas, again,
Thank you.
closing.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for those sharing those ideas. All right, we will move forward to item 6, and this is to amend and/or adopt the agenda. The floor is open.
I move we adopt the agenda as written.
I second.
That was a motion by Dr. Yeager and a second by Ms. Davis. Any follow-up discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda before us, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? All right, that motion carries. We are going to move forward with item 7. Dr. Hooker, this is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today, I'd like to say congratulations to our Employee of the Month, Ms. Renita Bolton. We're very proud of you, and as Dr. Moore said, you were completely shocked when we walked into that room. It just shows a testament of the camaraderie among your bus drivers and your busing staff, how much they trust you and appreciate the service that you've given to our district. Thank you for 28 years of service. I also like to acknowledge all of our special educators and support staff, as December is the Special Education Month. Many thanks for your continued hard work with our students. That concludes my comments for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hooker. Any follow-up questions or conversation related to Dr. Hooker's report? Okay, we're going to move forward to item 8. This is our consent agenda. The floor is open for a motion.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hull, a second by Ms. Davis. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. All right, so that motion carries, it's unanimous. We will move forward to item 9. These are our, this was a separate action item. Item A is our financial report. The floor is open for a motion.
Make a motion that we accept the financial report as written.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Evans, a second by Ms. Hall. Any follow-up conversation? Okay.
I would like to just invite the community that follows up with me to please take a look at our work session where we did hear from our CFO to give us the highlights of the state of the finances in the district.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I know also it was added, Dr. Yeager, if you want to share like that brief update with the fund about having a complete view, if you would just sort of share that.
Oh, I just asked Mr. Greiner to present the data in the future as a full year long with the rise and the fall of the budget, so that it doesn't look like we have $90 million as a fund balance. That's just because all the taxes came in this month and they will be spent out over the next 6 to 8 months. So just wanted to clarify that, but thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up conversation before we take action? All in favor of adopting the financial report, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Okay, that motion carries. It's unanimous. We are at item 10. And so I'm going to open the floor for a motion to move into executive session for the following reasons: to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent, as well as to review an appeal from a student disciplinary tribunal. The floor is open for a motion to enter into executive session for those 2 reasons.
I so move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Dr. Yeager. All right, any follow-up discussion? All in favor of entering into executive session for those stated reasons, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Okay, that motion carries. It's unanimous. We are entering into executive session at 7:22 p.m.